me introduce you. So we're here at the opening for Plant Communitas Linum. This is curator Patricia Brien. This is our second exhibition in the Linen Biennale 2023 here at R-Space Gallery. It's an international contingent of artists, and we're delighted to have Patricia join us here for the opening to tell a little bit about each work. All of the work has been influenced by our relationship to the flax plant and how it's then processed into linen, and there's some fascinating processes and material engagement in all of the work, so I'm really delighted for you to tell us about it.
Thank you, babe. So thank you, and I will be reading from script just to ensure that I get that I cover everything well. So first of all, I wanted to say thank you to the Linen Biennale, to R-Space Gallery, and the National Lottery Heritage Fund for hosting and funding this event. And I'd like to say a special thanks to Robert, Anthea, May, Francesca, Catherine and the team. So Plant Communitas is now in its third iteration, and I started this exhibition as part of my PhD research. And I was thinking about the plants that we are connected with in the traditional wool industry of Stroud, and how they are backgrounded. So some of the plants I worked with were madder and other like ladies' bed, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, so a few different plants that were part of the dyeing process. And it sort of got me thinking about how it fits into another industry, of course, that is not wool, but is linen, and how plants feature obviously within that space, but also on levels that we mightn't think about. So I wanted to bring in spirituality, mythologies, tradition and various other elements, which is why I've drawn together artists that work with linen, with flax in very different ways, potentially. So the pandemic really brought our attention to the holistic benefits of the plant kingdom to the forefront, and it is on the back of that as well that Plant Communitas came into being. So philosophers like Michael Marder and Lucia Angharad speak about our relationships with plants and how they are entities in their own beings. And I wanted to think about the cultural and philosophical dimension of plant thinking, how humans can consider plants differently as radically different beings, rather than just othered. So for this exhibition, Linum, Flax Linum Crossings, I wanted to focus on the cultural and philosophical considerations of linen. But equally, look at linen from other places, so consider its diversity and commonalities. So the first piece I'd like to draw your attention to is Ilka White, and her piece is, she's based in Australia, she's an Australian artist, and her piece is constructed using materials that she sourced in her back garden. So Linum marginale is actually a wild Australian flax, and it's in a way out of the conversation, on sort of a more European or northern hemisphere linen, which is the common plant used. So Linum marginale. And she's also used her own hair. So she really questioned the commodification of our material world, and in sourcing products from herself, from her own hair, but also the plants that are growing wild in her garden, she was able to construct a thoughtful space of materiality So I'm going to move over to Geoff Litherland and Angharad McLaren. And again, this is another thinking or pondering on the relationship with materiality. And Geoff and Angharad did a project, a residency at the Harlem Studios in England, where they grew a field of flax, they harvested it, they then produced it into linen, and Angharad, who's a weaver, she wove a specific pattern into the canvas, and Geoff then, he's a painter, he painted over the top of it. It's a little bit difficult to see, but when you go up close and in certain lights, you can see the pattern of the weave and how the paint interacts with that. It's a very beautiful, thought-provoking piece or pieces. Amanda is a South African artist, and she is based in England, in Stroud, and her work is really based upon the ephemerality of not only life, but our material world. And this piece here, Impasse, is a material expression of the tensions between time and its durational qualities, but also how our impact upon the world, how devastating our impact can be, especially given the global warming. So she works with reclaimed and reconstituted materials. She's knitted linen and silk here, that's tussar silk, and paper forms the basis of the sculptural structure in the middle. So she looks at this tension and the struggles between the material cycle and the Earth's capacities, and how we've impinged upon these capacities for the Earth to regenerate and rejuvenate itself. Bridget Kennedy. And Bridget also looks at time, but she looks at time, deep time actually. She looks at nuclear time and how the impact, again it's about impact, how this is, well, close to a forever thing, the impact that humans have on the earth. And she wanted to compare that with the cycle, with the annual cycle of the flax plant, for example. So two different time factors embedded within the same thing. So these discs, which she sees as sort of mirrors potentially into the future, maybe nuclear futures. These ones are made with linseed resin, and there are additions that she puts in there. And the hair, which looks like human hair, is actually from the flax plant. So it really is a sort of a divination of the future. This is an elegy for Linum. And Annemiek de Beer, she's a Dutch artist, and she's long worked with plants, several decades. She's really tried to integrate plant spirit into her work. So based upon a subtle anthroposophic way of looking into the ether of the plant, she's tried to draw that and then mirror that back through her process of working. So she does believe, though, that the flax plant, that the spirit of the flax plant, it has actually been drowned in utilitarian approaches, and that actually its spirit needs to be revived. So this is really a lament, actually, for the plant itself, plant spirit. My pieces, and it's got a few different elements going through it. It reflects both the suffragist banners of early last century, but equally ecclesiastical banners too. And the reason being is that I've wanted to look at gendered myths through the flax plant. So just to give you a little bit of background into that, and I wanted to show you, I've been working with The Living Goddess by Maria Gimbutas. This is a controversial piece, but I love it. I think it's a really interesting academic book that has sort of inspired many land-based artists like Monica Shaw and others. So anyway, I looked at the ancient belief systems where flax has often been associated with female generatrixes. So flax women, as Maria Gimbutas says, from old Europe. But equally, vegetation gods, so the masculine mysteries. And often the two, they go back through deep time. So we're talking, for the vegetation gods, we're talking back to Mesopotamia, we're talking ancient Egypt. So these sort of lines of spiritual qualities of the flax plant and how they manifest are very ancient tropes. So for these vegetation gods, sometimes known as flax gods, they are born, they mature, they die, and then they're lamented. So we might think about Dumuzi, who's from Mesopotamia, and he is connected with the Inanna or Ishtar mythologies, but equally the Greek god Linos is associated with flax too. So equally there are traces of the flax gods in Lithuania, and Lithuania was the last place to become Christian. So it's been a Christian country for about 400 or 500 years, which before that it was pagan. So there's a very recent connection there as well. So there's a spiritual tradition that reaches back in the female and masculine lines. And in terms of the flax women, they are deeply connected with the distaff, and this is the image that I've got here. So this distaff would have started as a branch that held either wool or flax, and eventually it became a distaff. I'm assuming everyone knows what a distaff is. And ancient distaffs then became the broom, I suppose, a symbol of the broom, because women had their distaffs with them everywhere. And it was this knowledge that became dangerous, I suppose. So a power that not only knew how to generate cultural life through yarn, through cloth, but also knew how to take life away. So, and this is where we sort of start to see a clash with the sort of the new capitalist system that was emerging in the medieval era. And it's also at this time that we start to see the three fates. They appeared beforehand, but we see these images of women with power that are kind of scary. They're able to cut the cord of life. So this is all embroiled in this symbol of the distaff which becomes the broom. So we see this power and fear in figures like Mother Holla or Hulda or Perkta in the Germanic areas, and these are the scary kind of Christmas women. So we might also consider spinning and magic. So the distaff's seams and it merges with the broomstick, as I said, and eventually becomes a misogynistic trope where the witches, the wise women, with their symbols of the distaff and power, are burnt. It's a bit of a intellectual ride I'm taking you on, so please just suspend disbelief. But flax burns, and this finds its way into the process and rituals of the church, for example, the former power bases of medieval Europe. And Sic transit Gloria Mundi is a friendly reminder to the popes as they were being, and this took place over 1,000 years, it doesn't happen anymore, but this was a reminder to popes that were being canonised that their passage through this life would be short. So there would be a stick with some linen at the top, and it was lit, and 3 times they would say in a ritualistic manner, Sic transit Gloria Mundi, basically don't get too carried away because you're not going to be here long. So what I find interesting is that it's, this kind of masculine patriarchal line is connected with linen, with flax, but with burning. And this symbol that snakes its way around that baton is actually the ancient hieroglyphic, Egyptian hieroglyphic symbol of flax, and it is embodied as a wick. So that is the wick that ignites the candle, it brings fire, it brings warmth, but it's linen, it's flax. So it's all sort of contained within this one visual. So flax burns. Sorry, I've said that. So the flax that is associated with the regeneratrix, with the flax woman, is equally the material of burning, of lamentation, and forceful control over women's bodies many centuries ago. So I wanted to put the two there to show how both masculine and feminine spiritual and mythological lines somehow became embodied in unequal and well, for many, catastrophic kind of gendered relations. So the importance of flax has never waned, and the importance of the flax and linen industry throughout Europe is nowhere more poignant than here in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, in Lisburn. And I'd like to move on to Tim Parry-Williams' work, where he investigates the traditions and shared knowledges and the created structures that are lived and celebrated in this cloth. And it's around the mythos of the table, the communal space, and also the elements that compose that communal space. So the crockery and the linenware. There's a sense of communality, but at times the conviviality mightn't be as present as we might want. The division between the two perhaps shows divisions between the social classes. and between and social distinctions. So regarding different table settings was a vital element in his research, and he wanted to stress how key the Ulster museums, the Ulster folk museums have been in documenting the material for his work. He went there, literally took images, and then this was digitalised and processed into this cloth. The cloth itself, the yarn itself, comes from Northern Ireland. So it's a living history, replete with its divisions, but still there's a sense of wholeness, of being at the table together. And as such, it's an important archival piece. So this just gives a bit of an idea as to my thinking behind the different pieces that are here in the exhibition. Each of the pieces also has further text, so that hopefully when people visit they can have a further read, and feel free to contact me in the future. Thank you.